Jensen is an interesting character because when I got into this idea of cloud streaming, I actually went and met with Jensen at a conference, and I walked into the room with him and I explained what I was doing. And he goes, David, I don't really know, if it's a good idea or it's a bad idea. I just don't know. But what I do know is if it's good for gamers, it's good for NVIDIA. So I am going to support you in any way you want.
Today's guest is a legendary entrepreneur, technologist, investor, and one of the pioneers who helped shape multiple industries, from the gaming industry to the cloud computing and now venture-backed startups. Over the course of his career, he has founded and scaled several groundbreaking companies. He is the founder of Shiny Entertainment, the studio behind the iconic titles such as Earthworm, Jim, Aladdin, and MDK, and later co-founder GaiKai, one of the world's first cloud gaming platforms. GaiKai was acquired by Sony for $380 million and became the key part of PlayStation's streaming strategy. Most recently, he co-founded Cairo, a commerce partnership platform that raises more than $50 million and helps thousands of brands grow through strategic partnership and influencer commerce. Building companies, he is an active investor and advisor with investments across gaming, AI, defense technology, consumer products, and venture-backed startups. What makes his story so remarkable is his ability to see where the world is headed before most people do. From video games to cloud gaming to e-commerce to AI and emerging technologies, he has consistently been ahead of the curve, building businesses around trends and would later transform entire industries. Today, we'll talk about entrepreneurship, innovation, exits, investing, the future of AI, and the lessons that he has learned from more than 4 decades of building companies, taking risks, and reinventing himself. So without further ado, let's welcome David Perry. Before we get started, I always love asking this question. If your life was a movie, or in your case, a game, whichever works, what would it be?
I would say probably The Matrix, the Matrix movie. I actually got to make the video game of that movie, but the idea of sort of being enlightened and waking up and realizing things that you just took for granted, you never saw before. An example is I got interested in woodworking, for example. Why? Because everything I do is digital. So I make spreadsheets and PowerPoints and all that stuff, and when I'm gone, no one's going to go, wow, that was a great PowerPoint he made. So I got to make some furniture. So I started to learn woodworking, and what it does, it changes your whole perspective. Like as I walk through a hotel now, I'll actually stop and go, wow, that's a really nice table. Which is crazy, but it's like you start appreciating craftsmanship and what other people are creating in the world much more when you understand how complex it is. So even doing a podcast like this, setting it all up correctly with the right microphones and cameras and everything, that's fascinating to me. So I'm finding that I'm sort of opening my mind to, can I learn how all this works? Can I learn how metalworking is done? Can I learn how photography is done? Videography, cinematography, all of these things become fascinating. And as you start to learn them, what I realize is it also creates a rapport when you meet people who love that thing. So that's what they do as a job. And when you get in a room with them, you can sort of, you immediately have rapport with that individual. So it's been very helpful for me.
And speaking of that, my past career worked in Hollywood because I read that you did a deal with the Wachowskis, The Matrix. I worked with them on a movie. The last movie was called Cloud Atlas. So that's one thing that we have something.
Yeah.
But let's talk about you, because I know you came to the States. You started you're from Ireland, am I correct?
Yeah.
So let's talk about your story on how you got into gaming and how you went from that to coming to here. And I have read that when you came here, you thought you were going to do a project and you're going to leave until you realized that, oh, people want me here.
Yeah. So I started in Northern Ireland. And as you know, the weather's not as great as California, just a little bit different. They have a saying there that it rained twice this week, once for 3 days and once for 4 days. And that's what I grew up in. It was freezing cold. I was out in the countryside. And so the idea of making video games or anything like that wasn't an option, just wasn't an option. So I was interested in being a pilot. That's what I wanted to be.
A pilot for the plane.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I wanted to fly Concorde. So that was my mission, and I bought books and I was studying to be a pilot just by myself as a kid. But later in my life, funny enough, my mother, who worked for British Airways, arranged for me to actually go into the cockpit of Concorde. And it was the saddest day ever because I'm 6'8" tall, and Concorde goes to a little point. And there's just no room. I couldn't even get to sit in the seat because it was just all like this just isn't gonna work at all. So it was kind of a wonderful day to go to see Concorde, a super depressing day because I needed to find another career. And that's when the sort of the video games thing started to catch my interest, because in school we had computers and the teachers were so busy, and the government was just sending all these computers into our school. The teachers didn't really know what to do with it. And we, the kids, of course, had the time to sort of work out how to use them. And so,
What year was this?
this would have been, well, it'd been back in the 80s, in the early 80s. And so all this equipment arrived. We started, of course, making games because I'm not going to make spreadsheets or something like that. So we start making games, and then the BBC radio turns up wanting to interview us, and it's just an interesting thing that you're doing in school.
You're making it sound so easy. We just started making games.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys learn how to self code? Like, how did you start making games?
Well, that was actually a sad thing, is the computers were quite valuable. So I knocked on the door and I said, "Can I come in?" And the teacher said, "No, you're too young." So I had to wait a year, and then I finally got to go in. And in a way that got me really, like, I was unleashed into the room, and I could now get at these computers. And when I say make games, I mean make terrible games, right? So like the world's most simple, terrible games. But what actually happens is you start to learn as you go, as you're progressing. So in those days, you didn't have games the way we do now. It was, you would buy a magazine and there would be a listing of a game, and you would type the whole game in. And by doing so, when you're typing, you would see lives equals 3. And you go, I wonder if I make lives equal 10, will I get 10 lives? And the answer is yes, you will. So in a way, just touching the code and seeing the code would teach you how the game works over time.
So you were pretty self-driven, you and your friends.
Yeah, so we were all doing this. We were all like helping each other. And, getting a book on the subject was so valuable and so precious to us. I'd read every single word. And so then I started making, slightly better games, still very basic games, but slightly better. Funnily enough, I found out Elon Musk in South Africa at the same time was writing the same kind of basic games. But it got interesting because a publisher reached out to me and they said, "Would you like to have some of your games in a book?" Because I had been publishing in magazines. And so they said, "Would you like an actual chapter in a book?" And I said, "Of course, that'd be great." And then they came back and said, "Would you like your own book?" And I'm like, "Let's do that." So I'm now getting published in school and I'm getting paid. So suddenly money's coming in that as a kid, you've got nothing to spend it on.
And when you say as a kid, how old were you?
I was probably around 16 at that point.
16, okay.
Yeah, 16, 15, 16, somewhere around there. So I'm in high school and I'm buying ridiculous amounts of candy. I'm like the candy baron at this point.
So tell me, you started to make games and you said you started to get it published. You're self-driven, because did you have any leadership or like mentor that was helping you? Did you think about making this into a real career at that point? Yeah,
I didn't really think of this as a career. I thought of this as just, if you can imagine, if you're buying a magazine and you're seeing games in the magazines, wouldn't it be cool to be in there, have one of your games? That's the motivation. So when you get the magazine and it's got your game, that's why we did it. It wasn't, "Oh, this is a great career, or I'm going to make lots of money from this." It wasn't really the goal. It was just to sort of put your stuff out there, a bit like people do today, putting things on the internet.
So would you count that as your first exit? That you built the game and it was published, you got paid for it?
I had a weird situation because I had my computer was black and white, and the industry was about to go color. In the United Kingdom, it was called the Sinclair ZX Spectrum was the next one that was coming, and I couldn't afford it. And so my grandmother got very old, And she said, you know, when I'm gone, all I've got is, you know, teapots and things that aren't going to be very useful to you. So I just want to give you some money. And she just gave me some cash, which was just enough to buy that Sinclair Spectrum. And so I was then able to sort of leap forward and have the latest, coolest machine, which basically she'll never know the impact that had on my career, you know, being able to make games on that device, because that's where the market was. And so, yeah, then there was one day I wrote a game that was just so long, it was too much to type. Like, no one's ever going to want to type this in. So a publisher in England said, we'd like to publish it in, you know, where you'd buy it on a cassette tape, but you're going to need to move to England. And so that was really difficult. So now I'm in high school. Can you imagine you're in high school and someone in a time when video games were like skateboarding, it wasn't considered a profession at all. And I'm thinking of leaving this place and going and making games professionally. That is like saying I'm going to be a professional skateboarder to the teacher. And so I got all kinds of different responses you can imagine to that question. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? Most of them think it's a terrible idea. Some of them were quite supportive. My biology teacher said to me, I'm going to give you a passing grade in biology, but please never enter the field of biology. Because my focus was really, math and physics and all the things that game people would love. But long story short, I ended up deciding to move to England, and the whole thing changed gear the minute you arrive in England, and now you're a professional game developer in a professional studio, and you really don't know what you're doing because you've never done anything professional.
So did you finish high school, or you went?
I just left,
and now you're a professional. Like, how did that hit you?
Well, the thing that's crazy about it is, with education, I'm a big fan of education. I think it's really important, but if it gets in the way of your career, it's maybe not the most important thing. I think doing is better than studying about it.
I agree.
Actually, just go do it. And so by actually, jumping into the trenches and actually doing the work, I think was by far the best decision.
So you're doing the work. Was it in London?
It was actually in a place called Ashford in Kent, which is just outside of London.
So you were there. How did Branson find you?
Well, that was a crazy situation, because gaming is, you make the games, so you're developing them, but you also have publishers. It's very much like Hollywood. You could make a movie with a production company, but you still need a studio.
Yeah.
And so Virgin started making games, and somehow through a connection I had, they were interested in publishing the things that we were making. And so we started publishing our games through Virgin. But I got this weird phone call one day from the head of Virgin in the US. Mm-hmm. And he just said, David, we have an emergency. We have a game for McDonald's. It has to get done in the next 6 months. Would you be willing to just fly out here like right now? So just leave your house, lock your door, come to California. We'll get you an apartment. We'll get you a car. Whatever you're earning, we're going to pay you more. We're going to give you royalties. So just come to California. And you can imagine, I'm sitting in a little town in England called Egham, Surrey. And I'm just thinking, California sounds pretty cool. Like, why wouldn't I just go do that? I was single. So, it wasn't like I had to break up with someone or bring someone with me. It was very simple to just go to the airport and fly to America. And when I got there, the game was a McDonald's game, but when we made it, so we made the game, and the McDonald's executives came over to see it, and they were just so upset because they didn't like our game at all. And the reason was there was no Ronald McDonald in the game, and we kind of were like trying to be nice about it, but we're like, no, kids don't like Ronald McDonald, really. Sorry, but they just don't. And so they got kind of angry about it, and they said we had to put Ronald in the game, so we sort of stuck him in at the end of the levels, and then we published the game, and the game won Game of the Year. So here I am sitting in California with Game of the Year. So you can imagine Virgin was like, would you like to stay for another game? And that's why I never left. Because the next game we did was for 7-Up.
Yeah.
And that opened up a relationship with Sega, who made the video game consoles. So we were, it became far too interesting. So the idea of going back to Egham and, working out of my mother's house again didn't sound like a great move.
And I presume by then you're like, this is a real career. This is something that I am going to go after.
Yeah. Virgin, the way Virgin works is it takes its brand and puts its brand on things and then markets it really well. So I was getting marketed really well. I was flying all over the world, first class with Virgin, and getting, doing interviews everywhere. And it was just, my career just exploded thanks to Virgin. And then other people got interested in us, like Sega started paying attention when we did 7-Up, their game called Cool Spot. Then they said to us, we have the rights to Aladdin. Would you be willing to make Aladdin with Disney? And that turned out to be a game changer for us because Disney have the world's best animators.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine you're making a video game and now you've got Disney doing your animation. That was a very...
And I just want to add, I used to play Aladdin, Sega, with my brother growing up. So we have another thing to connect it. I know almost every single level. Like I just have a flashback right now.
It's a hard game.
It is hard, especially the one with the lava.
Yeah, very hard.
So at one point did you decide that, hey, I'm going to have my own company? Because you did have a really handsome exit, right?
Yeah. So I have formed companies along the way. I had my own little micro company in the UK. You need something to trade under while you're selling your services. So that was my my first sort of, but I still didn't really understand business. I've never had I don't have an MBA. I've never studied business. So everything I've learned just doing it.
I would say you're the classic high school dropout.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely. And just to sort of put a bow on that part of it, Queen's University in Belfast was my dream university. So if I had have gone the proper course through education, I would have gone through Queen's University. And I got a call one day, Queen's would like you to come and give a speech at the school. And I said, sure, I'll do that. So I gave a speech and then they gave me a fellowship to the school. And I'm like, what's a fellowship? I don't even know what that means. And they said, oh, that's like you're getting a key to the school. You're welcome here anytime. This is a new home for you. And then they said, by the way, we're giving you a doctorate. And so I got a doctorate in engineering from Queen's University without even going.
That's the whole circle effect.
Yeah, which is kind of funny, right? So it's just, and they make a bigger deal of that than if I had have done it properly, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, Ireland has been very good to me, and I still retain ties, and I still do what I can to help. So they've taken me to help speak to different businesses in Ireland. They have Invest Northern Ireland, which is an organization that helps startups over there. And so I've done everything I can to help, but my focus over here was, at some point I have to start my own company. Now, what's the rules on that? And the answer is, at the time you needed a green card. So I had to wait until I got a green card. And so during Aladdin, I was still working as a contractor. And then I was able to finally get a green card. And so I immediately started my own company in the US.
But you were working with top tier. I mean, at the time, nobody bigger than Disney, Sega, Pepsi, McDonald's, etc. And then comes Sony, right? I mean, that was a game changer for you as well, your relationship there. Can you tell us about how that came about?
Well, actually, I had a very interesting relationship with Sony because Sony, the head of worldwide development, was a guy called Phil Harrison. Guess where he's from? The United Kingdom. I knew him from I knew him before he was even in the game industry. And suddenly he's the head of worldwide development at Sony. That's a great thing. He's the same height as me and we were born on the same day. So it was just an interesting relationship.
A brother from another mother.
Yeah. So it just meant that if we needed to talk to Sony, it became a little bit easier. And then, years later, which I could never have predicted that this would be the outcome, but I got very interested in where video games were going. Like, what's the future of gaming? Is everyone going to keep buying $500 consoles when you really want to play the latest hardware, which is all, I mean, the consoles you're holding on to for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, in which point they're getting old. And I really want to play the latest things. So then everyone has to rebuy the next console. So I didn't think that's a great future. So for me, the future was, our sort of corporate mantra was everything, everywhere, instantly. So can I have every game ever made on any device instantaneously? And if you like that idea, then you say to yourself, well, how do you do that? And there's no time to, download everything. Like, every game ever existed, you're not going to do that. So it has to come from the cloud. So suddenly you're saying, well, I'm going to get games to appear from the cloud and arrive onto your device. And I patented it, and then I gave a speech about it. And
when you had this idea, what year was this?
Good question. This would have been, I think it was like 1998.
You were very ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Okay, because today that's how we operate.
Yeah.
But in 1998, this concept, I'm sure the concept of the cloud is so new because people are just getting into having this big, boxy computer at the time.
Yeah. And the internet was expensive.
Yeah.
Then just moving data around was expensive. So people thought I was nuts. And lots of game developers went on record that I was selling snake oil because you can't possibly do what I was saying you're going to do. And it became quite difficult because when you have other, people, CTOs at different game companies saying you're nuts, then that's kind of hard because investors were like, is he nuts? Like, should we really invest in this, or is this the future, or is this not possible? And the logic was quite simple, is if I'm playing, let's say I have a very old laptop and I want to play the latest, most modern game and it's running in the cloud, then I somehow have to get that game from the cloud onto that computer so fast that you can't even feel the difference. And they just said, you can't beat the speed of light. There's always going to be a latency. If I press the enter key, it's got to go all the way to the cloud. Yeah. It's got to render the whatever changed, and then it's got to send it back to my computer. There's going to be a delay there, and therefore, you guys are selling snake oil. This is not possible. The games will always feel sort of sluggish and terrible.
Did you ever cross paths with Jensen Huang?
Oh, yeah.
He said something very similar too. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to finish, I'll finish the thought on that, and then we'll go to Jensen. But what happened was, no one thought, what if you ran the game faster in the cloud? So imagine the game's running locally at a certain speed, but you run it twice as fast in the cloud. You just compress time. And by compressing time, it gives you the ability to do the transmission through the internet, as long as it's not too far.
So you don't have to spool.
No. So we were able to do demonstrations of a game running from the cloud with exactly the same feeling as it running locally. And it caused people's minds to explode. They couldn't believe that it was possible. And even Google, the CEO of Google, Sundar, ended up demonstrating it at his Google I/O conference on stage. So the fact that our tech was being demonstrated by the CEO of Google was a pretty good sign to our investors where we're maybe onto something. The result was Sony bought that company because that tech was the best tech available at the time for doing this technology. Interestingly enough, our tech is still more advanced than anything you see today.
Wow.
So nobody has done it the same way we did it. The demos that got our company acquired, right. And that deal was nearly $400 million. So it was.
When was this deal closed again?
This was 2012?
And the name of that company was GaiKai.
Yeah.
So you put together an amazing team. I mean, I can't believe.
Don't forget the Jensen story.
Yeah, we'll get the Jensen.
knowing him, how you got Robin Pimentel to join GaiKai, and you and I have had a conversation about your philosophy of how you put a team together. Can you share some of that with our viewers?
Yeah, so talent is everything. I call them 10Xers. If you can find a 10Xer, it saves you hiring 10 other people. So find those people. And they're out there. Robin Pimentel is a perfect example. Super, super intelligent. And you don't need a lot of them. You need a few. You need 2, 3 on your team, and you're off to the races. So I would highly recommend finding, when you've got a 10Xer, it's just, you don't ever hear about problems because they solve them. They're problem solvers. There's a thing that I'll say to you now, which is going to annoy you for the rest of your life, is when you're in a meeting. Well, have you ever been in a meeting where someone keeps pointing at problems and telling you why something, yes. problem. Oh, they're just like the problem. I call them hurdle pointers. They point at hurdles all day long, and they're so annoying. And those are the people you do not want in your company. Mm-hmm. They're not helpful. What you want is people who can jump hurdles, and they know they're there, but they find a way. They just deal with them and get across them. They have to go through barbed wire at some point, but they always come out the other side. There's a lot of people die in the barbed wire. Like they just can't get it done. And it's just, they just get stuck. So when you're in a meeting now, you're going to be sitting there, I promise you, going hurdle pointer. Uh-oh, hurdle pointer. and
I'm always going to remember you.
Yeah, it's just the truth. But anyway, finding really good talent is you just know it, and when you do, hold on with both hands, and let them do the thing they're doing. Like unlock them, unleash them. Don't tie them up in ridiculous, stupid paperwork and all the nonsense. I used to make fun of a manager I had. I got this guy hired to be my manager, and I won't name names, but reality is he would ask me to do all this paper shuffling. And so I just started making up the content just to see if he even read it, which of course he didn't, because I just made it up. I was just testing to see, am I really wasting my time? Yes. So that's an awful thing to do to super creative people that you're working with, or if you get some incredible talent that you like the Robins, imagine you just wasting his time. So that's it. Just unlock them. Now I'll get to Jensen. Jensen is an interesting character because when I got into this idea of cloud streaming, I actually went and met with Jensen at a conference, and I walked into the room with him and I explained what I was doing. And he goes, David, I don't really know, if this is a good idea or this is a bad idea. I just don't know. But what I do know is if it's good for gamers, it's good for NVIDIA. So I am going to support you in any way you want. And we're going to help you make this happen. And it was the most unbelievable, wait, I haven't even met this guy before, right? Can you imagine? You're coming out of that meeting. He offered us access to hardware, source code, custom hardware, which we took advantage of. So just something interesting happened. They actually made us custom cards just for our company, thanks to Jensen. You think that would have been possible in any other way unless you had Jensen in your corner? And so these pallets of custom made NVIDIA cards came to our company. And the guy was so unbelievably helpful, and his team was just behind us 110%. And then he had a keynote speech at his conference, the NVIDIA conference they have every year.
Yeah.
He asked me to present with him on that keynote speech. And I was on stage with him, and we presented this idea to the world, which was that the console becomes an Ethernet cable. So he held up a green cable and said, this is the future console, which is a pretty fun idea.
And when did you guys do that speech? Because I'm definitely going to go check it out.
It would probably be around, I'm going to guess that would be about 2011 or somewhere in that in that very narrow window, somewhere around there, when we first started making a real fuss about this.
And I would assume, so when you first met Jensen and you're pitching an idea, we're talking about late 1900s, right? 1990s, late, going into the Y2K. But I would imagine, two founders, he was also coming at the time, you guys having that support helped you a lot with your vision, because I'm sure you're going through a lot of doubt yourself, or maybe not.
That's a great question. So I have a really weird thing where I don't seem to think things through and stress myself out about it. I just go. So I've been in the most crazy meetings and situations, and I'm sitting there, I'm not second guessing it. You just just go and do it.
You're just figuring it out and then getting it.
I've had meetings in Hollywood where I'm in a room with 20 Hollywood executives, and I'm looking around the room going, there's no one in this room is allowed to say yes to me. Like, this is weird. Like, we're all going to just sit here and be nice to each other. But until you get the decision maker in the room, you know you're not. When the Wachowskis are in the room, you get the Matrix because it's their decision, right? They can say yes and no. And a lot of people in Hollywood may lose their job if they make a bad decision. So it's much safer to just sit there and nod along and not actually execute anything. That
is the flaw of the studio system.
It's a really
that way.
It's a real issue. And then licensing, there's not a lot of vision, so they don't really. When I first started going to Hollywood, a lot of the executives didn't play video games because they were older. And then as the younger people moved in that grew up with video games, they of course thought it was a great idea. So originally licensing, I would find myself sitting in a licensing department and, surrounded by coffee cups and things like that, where people were licensing logos to put on coffee cups, but they weren't thinking to themselves, how can we work with the game industry at all? They just are like, oh, we're going to make some money from a game, I guess. But when the Wachowskis came along, they said that we're going to treat the whole thing as one project. So we want the game and the movie to both be one thing. So the actors will work on both.
Yeah.
And they shot an hour of extra footage. Like, how on earth can a video game company ever afford an hour of Matrix quality footage? And the answer is the directors. Excuse me. So the directors were incredible. Because they loved gaming, but they had full control over the making of the Matrix movie, and so they were able to go and get this footage, and then just give it to us to put into the game.
They're thinking really big picture IP. How do you drive this IP and make it into multiple revenue versus just one? So tell me. So in 2012, you sold your company to Sony, and then what happened next?
Well, whenever you have an exit, the way it works is the company's kind of paranoid that you're going to just leave the next morning. So they sign you some kind of don't go to the beach deal with you. And that kept me still interested in where everything was going with Sony. And so I was trying to work out what would be the best thing for me to do? Like, what could I do to help them? And I had all kinds of ideas. Like, I wanted to get involved in their camera department, and I wrote to the chairman of Sony, can I please work on cameras? I got smartphone ideas. I got all these different ideas on things. But the one that seemed to resonate with them is they wanted me to help with their VR, because one of my employees created, was the CEO of Oculus VR. So.
Oh, the CEO. We were just talking about Lockie Palmer, who's the founder of it. Yeah.
So he was the guy that created the tech. The CEO was Brendan Arieb, and Brendan worked at the company that we sold to Sony. So ultimately, VR was an interesting one, because then I could be a bridge between Sony and Oculus, who was leading that whole space. Right. And so I started down that path, and then I think Sony realized, well, maybe he's not going to stay. So they ended up saying, like, we'll just take care of VR. And there wasn't really that much else that I was kind of excited about that was going on at the time.
Right.
So I slowly ended up drifting away and getting lost in a million other projects that I was interested in.
Talking about other projects, you've been very fortunate, and I use the word fortunate loosely because you work hard. The harder you work, the more fortunate or lucky you become. And people, you got a lot of help along the way. So can you share with us the story of Earthworm Jim and what you've done with that as a philanthropist?
And before you continue, we're just going to have a word to our sponsors, and we will be right back.
I'd like to introduce our sponsors, because without them, this podcast would not exist. First is Clone Force. Clone Force builds digital teammates that help people get everyday work done 50 times faster and around the clock. It's like having a digital teammate. So you just need to make one AI agent to help run the entire company. Next is Reed Smith. It's a globally recognized law firm helping founders navigate every stage of growth, from formation to fundraising, to scale and to exit. Finally, we have Sunstone. They support entrepreneurship, education, and inclusive innovation by partnering with universities, nonprofits, accelerators, and public and private initiatives to help opportunities for the next generation of founders. Together, these partners represent the future of entrepreneurship, combining technology, legal expertise, and community-driven opportunity to help founders build, scale, and succeed. Thank you to our sponsors.
Yeah, so whenever I got my green card, I decided it was time to start a company, and we did it in Laguna Beach. And it was weird to have a tech company in Laguna Beach, but you know.
I read that you said you loved the view.
It was great for recruitment. That was the secret. Yeah. Is when I wanted to hire somebody, I would put them up at the Surf and Sand Hotel in Laguna Beach, and they would wake up and they would go swim with some dolphins, and then they would come and I would bring their wife with them always. So, you know, you're coming to interview with us, but bring your wife and she'll be there at the hotel and have a great time. And so when they got the taste of Laguna Beach from wherever they were at, it was a wonderful help in recruitment. And then of course they get to work on fun stuff. But yeah, with Earthworm Jim, it was a tough one because I didn't know what to do really, because again, I didn't understand business at all. So I went to I was offered a job by a toy company called Playmates Toys. So Playmates makes the toys for Disney and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all kinds of stuff. Very successful company. And I said to them, well, actually, I made Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the UK. I got that brand and it took me straight to #1. So I learned that branding is really important. And here's a toy company that's just built on branding. So we had a rapport, and I'm sitting with the owner of the company, and he said, well, I want to get into video games. Would you join us? And then you can help us build a video game department or wing. And I said, well, that's not that interesting to me, but I would like to make my own company. Maybe you could fund that. And so we did a 3-game deal, and that was funded by a toy company who was very hands-off and just like, go do your thing. So, but they did give us, they said to us, you can have any brand or any property that we have access to. So I actually took meetings with everyone, like all the Paramounts and everyone. Just I went around all these different people with licenses that work with toy companies.
Yeah. And
we were looking at Knight Rider and all these different properties at the time that we could have used. But internally, I had just interviewed an animator, and he had drawn this character, Earthworm Jim, and I loved the character. And so I said, let's just make this game because I love this, and I think this is going to be really good. So we made the Earthworm Jim game. I programmed it. So that was the last game I programmed before I went to the dark side of management. But making Earthworm Jim was so fun. And you can imagine we're a little startup in Laguna Beach. I don't really understand business that well, just making a game and having fun, and a toy company paying the checks. So we were okay.
It's like you have an overhead deal.
Yeah. It solved that stress of running a business. So we were able to focus on making a good game. We put the game out, and it won Game of the Year. And we got magazine covers everywhere. And then all these licensing deals poured in. So for T-shirts and underpants and lunch boxes and everything you can possibly license, those contracts just started arriving. And then we did a television show deal with the Warner, it was the Warner Kids Network, and Universal Cartoon Studios made the actual Earthworm Jim cartoon show. And then I got Jim Henson, his studio reached out saying, we want to make the movie for Earthworm Jim. And I went back to Universal and I said, oh, this is so great. We got Jim Henson wants to make the Earthworm Jim game, or the Earthworm Jim movie, sorry. And I need the rights back. And then Universal goes, you're not getting the rights back.
Of course they're not.
So I kind of, this is how you learn, right? I've now learned that there's a performance clause, which I didn't know existed. And that would have been a good thing to have in our agreement. Either you make a movie or I get the rights back. And then I could have gone to Jim Henson's studio with it. But anyway, this is the dark side of learning as you go, is you make mistakes and then you have to learn from those mistakes. But the result is Earthworm Jim opened so many doors for me because it was kind of a cult hit. And, still to this day, people that grew up with it remember that game because it was so different from the other games that were out at the time.
But you wrote a book. and the royalties from the profits from that book are going into a nonprofit fund, correct?
Yeah. What's their book title before we go in? What's their
Yeah, I mean, well, so part of what I like to do is I like to do something so I can learn how that's done. So writing a book was more learning how to write a book than it was to, like, I want to be an author. I don't really want to be an author. I want to be, what does it take to publish a book?
Yeah, but the book
how does
was
that
well
work?
received, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It was a learning experience for you, but it was entertainment and education for the consumer.
Yeah. So yeah, the idea was just to make it, it was called David Perry on Game Design, and it was a brainstorming thing. So what happened was I used to present to students quite a lot, and I had this sort of breakthrough moment, which is actually inspired what I'm working on right now. Is I was once in a class of students who were all making games, and I said to them, I want you to invent a weapon never been seen in a video game before. And I had given everyone a paper and a pencil, and you could see them all kind of going, trying to think of something. It's very hard to think of a new thing that's never been done before. That's hard, and you've only got a few minutes. So the answer was they all got stuck. So then on a screen, I had a projector, and I projected all the possible ways to die, and it's this scrolling list that goes on and on and on. And I learned this from a screenwriter friend, David Freeman, who teaches screenwriting. He studied movies and realized that, how many different ways are there to open a movie? And he's studied this, like he does it with groups of people studying movies to try to find, is there one that he's missed? So maybe there's 20, and then getting to 21 is actually really hard. But if he finds it, that'll be 21, and then 22 maybe. And so it's always much less than you think. So how many ways are there to open a movie? When you get past wherever it was 20 plus, he had nailed every single movie. And so people would then when he taught, he would say, can you think of a movie that's not on this list? And they would call out a movie, and he'd go, that's number 7. He knows every movie, and he knows. So what I realized is there's sort of preset ways to do things. Mm-hmm. So could I make those lists too, but for video games? Like, there's going to be a whole bunch. How do you get a message to somebody? How do you, all kinds of different things. Including ways to die, of course. So I made a list of all the ways to die. It was about 80 something. It wasn't a million. You think, oh, there must be a million ways to die. No, when you get to 80, you're going to find it very hard to add 81, 82, 83. So you scroll that list, the whole room lights up. Everyone has ideas because they're inspired. So I'm calling that inspired creativity, mm-hmm. where you're jumping off something. You're not just sitting there looking at a white piece of paper going, I need to invent something. But what it does is the whole room suddenly became creative because they had ideas that they didn't have a minute ago and couldn't pull out of their pocket when they needed it. But now, because we've given them something, and that was the idea of the book, was to try to create as many of those lists as I possibly could in every possible dimension of games. So the long-term goal of this is I hope to open source that book and then let the sort of the wisdom of the crowd fill in all the blanks, and there, anything that I've missed, just put it in, so that can be the sort of central
interactive,
designed to inspire people creatively. And so something I'm working on right now is a platform to help people make. Ultimately, it will be making videos, movies, TV shows, and games. I want kids to own their own TV shows, right? I want you to own the rights to that sitcom you just made. And I'm, of course, using AI to do this. But what I'm realizing is that if I say to you, okay, let's go, we're going to do your sitcom, tell me about your characters and your location and your situation, they just freeze because they don't have that, but they want to do it. So it's kind of a study in where AI is going. I think the future of AI is people having their own taste and leading it. Like you're leading this incredible ability to do work and pointing it somewhere and taking it to a destination. And this same idea takes place where if I show you, we were just doing this morning with the team, if I show you 100 characters that are all completely different, you start going, oh, I like that character. And then your brain goes, well, what's that character up to? And our platform will help you come up with an idea for what that character is up to. And you start riffing off it and you end up with a video you would never, ever have made, right? But
you are providing a blueprint and a pipeline for them.
Exactly.
I'm saying this because I am going to find you and my son's going to be on it. He wants to be an animator.
There you go.
And he's middle school right now, but I'm going to tell him we hit the jackpot today.
Yeah. It's I think this is the future I don't think AI, in fact, I know because I've spent at this point countless hundreds of hours testing and testing and testing, working what AI can and cannot do well. And I've trained my own model for writing. So we have our own writing model. Because it can't do sitcoms well.
Right.
You should ask AI to write you a sitcom.
It's not funny.
You're going to be like, oh man, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But we've got AI as being the most current, but along the way, you made a left turn. I mean, one night you showed me on your phone a map, both the U.S. and globally, where all these little points of lights started popping up, and that was your newest, at that point, startup, Caro. Totally different. So what prompted that and what's going on there?
Yeah, so this is, I was on the board of my daughter's school, so I learned how to run schools, which I found fascinating. And they said to me one day, we're doing an entrepreneurship class. Would you be willing to be the investor? So you have to walk in the room as the investor, and we're going to have an entrepreneur, and we're going to have all the students listen in. And I'm like, let's go. This will be fun. Turned out the entrepreneur was a local entrepreneur, Jason Goldberg, who was very interested in influencers. And I was interested in influencers too. Like, what is that?
Social media influencers.
Social media influencers. How is that going to really work? And how are brands going to work with social media influencers? And I had a sort of a head slapping moment, which was when you pitch a company, when you pitch an idea, pitch it knowing that the answer is yes. This is a no-brainer, right? But in reality, it's a great way to pitch. So I would say to brands, would you like to know which influencers buy your products? And then just wait. There's not one single brand on planet Earth will say no. Mm-hmm. So that's the pitch for your company. It's a yes pitch. I call it a yes pitch. So make a yes deck for a yes pitch and go pitch that. And you'll find every single brand wants it. And that's what happened to us. So every single brand we approached and said, would you like to know which influencers buy your products? They would say yes. And we created the technology to work that out. And so not only could we do that, but we could sort of alert you. There's someone on your site right now with, 8 million followers. You want to make sure to take good care of them. And so they would reach out to them and offer them, please don't buy our products anymore. We love what you do on social media. Please, you can visit anytime and we'll just send you whatever you need. And that changes the relationship with the influencers. So that's how we started. So that's what the idea of Caro was.
You went in and you invested in the company.
Yeah. I put in over $1 million cash into the company.
Okay.
And so we started building it, but this is one of those classic situations where you kind of go, but there are other influencer companies out there. They weren't quite doing what we were doing, but there are influencer companies out there. And we were looking at e-commerce and where e-commerce was going. And so there's a saying, skate to where the puck is going. We started to do a bit of that, which is the influencer thing is somewhat saturated, whereas the future of e-commerce, the way we see it, seems wide open. So let's look at that and we'll pivot. It's a bit like Netflix are making DVDs and then they suddenly go streaming. We did that to ourselves. We did a very aggressive pivot out of influencers towards what we thought was the future of e-commerce. And what that was whenever you talk to owners of brands, the one big thorn in their side is the cost of storing all their stuff. Like storing all these backpacks or skateboards or whatever in a warehouse is torture. And having to move them and get them out of there and old stock that's taking up shelf space, it's a real problem. So we went around Orange County here. there was a company, I've forgotten the name of it now, the e-bike company. It'll come to me.
Gotta go.
No, there's another one. But is it 70 something, or whatever it is, it's a number. Super 73. Super great company. And we would say to them, why don't you sell helmets? And they go, well, we make bikes, we don't make helmets. And it's like, but people who buy bikes want helmets and gloves and lights and everything else. We have all of that. Would you like to? What we'll do is we'll just make it so that your website suddenly has all of these things. The customer just adds them to the cart and checks out, but the shipping is going to come from the glove company or the helmet company, which means you can now increase your sales. And what was radical about it was anytime you think of selling someone else's product, you think about getting an affiliate cut, which is just a few percent, 5% or something. But in this scenario, you sold the light to a new customer that this light company doesn't know. So you're not an affiliate, you're a retailer. So you should get the retail cut, which is usually 30 to 50%. So therefore, you're getting a profoundly bigger cut for every single thing you sell. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And you never touch the product. You don't do any customer support on the product. They'll take care of that. You can do whatever support your team wants to, but it's going to be backed up by the manufacturer. So we built that technology, and you can just imagine we were just flooded with brands wanting to do that. Thousands and thousands of brands, crazy amounts of products. And then Shopify was watching us closely, and Shopify decided to just completely copy us and add it as a free feature to Shopify. And that's devastating. So you're an entrepreneur, you've got all these investors behind you, everyone's really excited, this is looking really good, this is a very exciting future, and then a major platform. And so this is a lesson I've learned, is be careful when you're on platforms. Just be careful, because the platforms at the end of the day are watching everything that's going on, and when they see any kind of activity they like, they can just take that away from you.
Did they ever try to approach you to be like, hey, let us acquire a company, or they just
we were actually in diligence. We were talking to their acquisition team, and then they went silent. And when they went silent, then we saw they changed gears and suddenly made what we were making and released it. So what do? Do you cry about it? Or is that the natural order of things? Which of course it is. If you're on their platform, they can do whatever they like, and there's nothing you can do about it. So what we realized is that there were much bigger companies looking for the same thing. So now, what about all the really big companies, the big, retailers that are starting to have thoughts about, how can I start to put my products into, or how can I get more products in, that we can sell, but how can I also get my products out into more stores across so instead of always, you have to come to my destination to buy, you can buy my products in someone else's destination, and we'll help you get your products across this incredible thing. So that's what Caro sort of started to steer its way out of this disaster with Shopify. Is how about we just start working with enterprise, because they're the big enterprise retailers who actually bought some companies, and we took their relationships with enterprise and we've put that together now. And so the big thing that's coming next, which I'm super excited about, is this idea of agentic commerce. So agentic commerce is when you start to think about, when you're searching with AI and it recommends a product, that's actually that's something that our technology can help profoundly with, because not only can the AI company have access to all of these products, but they can also get the retailer cut, which is not here's a few percent, thank you so much, OpenAI. We can say to them, you get the retailer cut on everything you recommend, and our technology is fully ready to go. Like, let's go. So we're finding ourselves. So my point is, it might seem the morning we woke up and saw Shopify had launched a direct competitor, like a direct salvo straight at us, sounds like a day you would just normally just hold your head in your hands and give up. But the reality is, as long as you keep finding and watching where everything is going and what's going to matter in the future, and you go there. I'll give you the way I explain this to people in the game industry is, think of the game industry as being a train on a track, and the whole industry's on that train, and the train's just rolling down the track. Then behind the train is a whole bunch of people that missed the train, and they're chasing after it, and they really want to be in the game industry, but they can't quite get on the train, and they're just trying to get on the train. But there's also people on the train that are trying to predict what station's next, or how far down that track can you go? 1 station, 2 stations, 5 stations, how far can you go? And the way to do it is say, well, what I would do is X. I think this is a great idea. Then you go, well, how would I beat it? If someone actually built that, how would I beat it? And that will actually get you farther down that track. And then you go, well, someone did that. Well, how would I beat it? And so as long as you think that way, you'll end up way down the track. And there's not really any company that I can think of that you can't sort of improve on if you think that way. So if I said to you, Amazon, right, it's done. There's what more could you do as Amazon? My first question is, do they have all the products in the world? No. That's how you beat Amazon.
Or how they operate. So the question is, if you rank Amazon or anybody 1 to 10, where would you give them? Well, David, I give them a 8.5.
Yeah.
And you say, that's terrific. That's a good number. But what would it take to go from 8.5 to 10? And that's the customer's pain. And as long as you're asking those kinds of questions, now you know what to build.
Yeah.
Right?
The customers are the answer always.
Right. And the other part of your story, if I may, so it's about resiliency, iterations and pivots based on what the market is doing. Mm-hmm. But there's another part of your story, which is timing. If you would have started with Shopify and a year earlier, you would have had an exit. Right?
Yes.
So timing is, and where you are on that growth curve is critical. The exit would not have been as big, but it would have been an exit, right?
Yeah, there's exits available all the time.
Right.
Our influencer company would have had an exit. It turned out influencers didn't become any less interesting. If anything, they're more interesting. They call it the attention economy for a reason. Attention is the secret to everything. Without it, it's like the idea of moving people on the internet now is kind of madness. So I'm going to get everyone on the internet to go over here. No, you're not. That's very hard. So how can you take your content and bring it to the people wherever they are? And then how do you make it effortless? So there's a masterclass in that somewhere, which is just trying to make things so that normal humans can enjoy it easily.
Yeah. One time you told me that the goal was to make your products frictionless.
Yes.
Which is the word you used, which has stayed with me for years. I think it's the first time we ever did this together, which has got to be at least 10 years ago. But the concept of frictionless that you shared with me has stayed with me, and I incorporated it in everything I've done. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I've been trying to get my own AI bot working so that I can ask it just to do anything. And I've spent hundreds of hours on it. I'm using something called OpenClaw, and I've got OpenClaw to the point where I can ask it, like I just asked it to make me a backgammon game for the Apple Watch. There isn't a backgammon game. I have a friend who's the world champion, so let's have a backgammon game. So I said, please build that, and it built it for me. And so, of course, you have to, just like I was saying, you always have to steer AI to your destination because it'll make some terrible decisions. So you fix the terrible decisions, and you end up, I have a working, completely finished backgammon game on my watch now. The only one in the world, because no one has backgammon for the watch. But what's interesting is when you play it, my fingers are too big. And so touching a little tiny checker on a backgammon board is very frustrating. And so I'm going tap, if I tap, because I don't want to have to zoom in or anything. I want to keep it really simple. Right. I can just go take that checker and put it over here. That's where the game developer part comes in, and you say, well, how can I make this easier for people? And so this is something AI will never suggest to you, will not suggest. It'll make it as hard and difficult because it doesn't tap anything with its fingers and doesn't appreciate the pain. So what happens is you go, well, I've noticed that when I tap this checker, that checker's available to be tapped, but the other ones around it,
move.
So what I did is I sort of make it so that the bounding box, or the area where it's detecting your finger, is increased based upon what your actual choices are. Because in backgammon, you're rolling dice, and there's only certain places you can go. Well, if there's only certain places I go, why am I checking all these little tiny spots? Just check the places you can go, and suddenly it just feels like silk. Now I can just go ding, 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 and it's these little decisions that make all the difference in the world, and no one will ever know, right?
Well,
no one will
the UX UI.
Yeah.
And what I'm learning from you is AI is great to a certain extent, but it can never replace a human thinking. And when you talked about the trim theory, like when I interpret it, it's like you're gamifying how to innovate, how to do things better. So that is going to be a short clip that I'm going to take out. I am going to watch it and rewatch it. So if there are two, as we're wrapping up, if there are advice, do you have a word for our audience? If they're looking to build a company, they're in this world where everyone's saying, you got to have your agentic AIs, you got to lead with AI. And the buzz right now, investors are looking to invest in anything with AI. And of course, that's also changing as well, right? Like, what do you have for them? Because you've been around different industries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've had multiple exits, and I've seen the whole thing.
Yeah.
The advice I would give today is that you need to get AI behind you. So in my case, I have AI behind me. I can now ask for anything and it will be done. It's working on stuff right now for me. It's creating characters right now, and I'm not even having to think about it.
Yeah.
That's where AI is really important. But what I've done recently is I made a GPT. So ChatGPT allows you to create your own little thing called a GPT. Right. And anyone listening to this, just Google how to do that. It's a really good thing to do. So Elon Musk has 5 questions that he asks when he's designing a company, and he's the richest man on earth. So if he says, here's my 5 things, and you say, I don't care, I don't want to hear that, then that would be dumb. I would highly recommend you read his 5 questions and put them into a GPT, and then ask yourself on any idea you've got, just say, you can even say you are Elon Musk, and here's your 5 questions that you're going to, he called it like the first principles, his design theory. Mm-hmm. And he believes very strongly that a lot of people have a bad idea, and then they keep trying to fix the bad idea, and they spend a fortune fixing something that shouldn't exist. And that's a very key piece of this thing. And I agree completely, and I'm guilty of it over and over and over and over again. And if you just were just to make this GPT and just ask it, please read my pitch deck, or here's my idea, it's going to beat you up. And there's a key word I've found that works really well in AI is the word brutal. So give me a brutal review. The reason for that is because AI very commonly doesn't want people committing suicide. So it's very, very nice to you. It's always like, oh, this is a great idea. Oh, you just wrote a song. That's a great song, because it doesn't want to depress you and have you go suicidal on it. So that's when you say, give me the brutal review, it means it's actually, you'll actually say, oh, well, you asked for brutal, and then it tells you what it actually thinks. So if you ever want to know what AI really thinks about your pitch, say, give me a brutal review of it, and then apply Elon's filters. And why this matters is you're going to end up with a much simpler idea. What it's going to do is take away all the complexity and all the stupidity that you're about to put in, gets all that out, and then you can just focus on the core idea. It's going to make you focus on the core idea, and you will move 10 times faster than you would have been moving if you do that. So I would say that's probably, it's very current advice, but it's something I've been testing, and it's really, really, really helpful.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that with our viewers.
Yeah, no problem.
And if someone would like to connect with you or check out your products and services, where is the best place where they can find you?
Probably the best place would be LinkedIn. So just go to LinkedIn /DPerry, DPERRY, because there's a lot of David Perrys. and they'll be able to find out whatever I'm up to there. And the website for the app that we're building right now is called heyruby.app. And it's in total stealth, but it's something that people can sign up, and we'll tell them when we launch. That's where I'm pouring my time right now. Mm-hmm. My dream is to stop coming up with new ideas and go and enjoy my man cave workspace. It's got 3D printing and it's so metalworking, and
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I have this space that's just set up for my retirement, and it's sitting empty right now because I just can't get the time to go over there. But it's very exciting to me because it's going to allow me to really tinker in a million different ways.
So what I'm hearing is, even though you say this is a place that we can retire, but you're really going to go there and think and come up with more ideas. You're probably going to go ahead and execute.
Yeah. Well, I keep trying to tell people that the Apple Watch is a much bigger platform than most game consoles. Mm-hmm. And why aren't you putting content on the Apple Watch? And they just look at you like, what? I haven't even thought of Apple Watch. What? Isn't that for fitness? No, it's on your wrist. It's like a console to go. So I can't resist sometimes. I just can't resist. I built a poker game for my watch. It doesn't exist. Now it does.
Is that public?
No, I haven't.
Let us know when it's public.
Yeah, at some point I'm going to launch these things, but I just don't have the time. It's more just I know how to do it, and I've learned how to do it. So, but what I'm saying is that there's opportunities to do things like don't go on the iOS on a mobile. My goodness, you're just lost in the noise. Mm-hmm. Go on the watch because I went to a conference. And I noticed that all around the table, everyone had Apple Watches. It's a shockingly common device. Yeah. So what a great platform to go and explore.
One of my mentors always told me in the past, be on top of the short list.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because that's when you're the most visible.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And for everyone that's watching, if you had found value in this podcast, I mean, I certainly did. I got so much nuggets. I'm going to go home and write it down and teach my kids about this. I invite you to share this podcast with a friend. Don't forget to subscribe. Come into our community because we do events like this with investors, with entrepreneurs coming together, putting our imagination to work, exactly like everything you're saying, but to work, making it something real. And in the process, we're going to fall. That is why this community exists. So I'll see you guys in the next episode.